Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition. What edition that is, I don't know, of LLG, Random but Real Wednesday Word on Word Wednesday, Stigma Breakers Collective. Every first Wednesday of the month, myself and my girls, Danya and Ashley, we talk about all things mental health. So we want to welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. We hope you've had a fabulous Wednesday, stress free. I can't say mine was stress free, but I hope yours was. How was yours, Danya? How was yours, Ashley?
It was good. I see Ashley had a very busy day. I did.
Yes.
I did. Good but busy.
She is in here. Hi, Claudette. One of my friends is on here. Always good to see people. You all can ask questions when you come in if you want to. Um, Although I call you Claude, I'm going to spell your whole name out today. Okay. So, um, first of all, before we start talking about the topic, I would be remiss to not shout out my lovely niece Kelly. Today is her birthday, and I had to mail my gift. I'm not really thrilled about that. I don't know about y'all, but I get excited when I get to see people open gifts, even if they like it or don't like it. It's not really that, but it's something about just the joy of being able to give and then seeing somebody's face when they open whatever it is that you give them. I like it. I'm a big deal. Hey, Dr. Gilkey, and hey, Lisa Bellamy Fluker. She's another vocalist, y'all. If y'all don't have her, she has a CD, go check her out. Okay. Anyway, so today we have all of us have been affected by some type of loss at some point in our lives, right? And so it was another person's very special birthday. So I'm gonna let Ashley start us out today. And yeah, we'll go on from there.
Thanks, Lisa. So, yes, today was a very, very special day, very important day for me. Today, 100 years ago, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was born in Washington, D.C., a third generation Washingtonian. So proudly in this area for a lot of generations. My mother is a fourth generation Washingtonian. I am a fifth generation Washingtonian. And I pray that any future kids that I have will be sixth generation Washingtonians. Yes, my grandmother, Helen Wright King, was born on this day 100 years ago. I absolutely adored my grandmother. We had some things that we really just connected on. She was a good student. She graduated from high school at 16. She was skipped 2 grades. She was valedictorian of her class. Um, she was a wife. She was married to my grandfather for 40 years before he passed in 42 years. I'm sorry. My mom is sitting here.
Mama.
She's not going to get on camera because she's like not camera ready. But
Okay.
for over 40 years to my grandfather, before he passed away in 1982, she was obviously a mother of 9.
Wow.
And her childbearing years went from 1943 to 1963. Childbearing years, not even counting the rearing. So her oldest was born in 1963. Her youngest was born in 1963.
Wow.
I don't have that in me, but I appreciate that she contributed in that way. But my grandmother spent a lot of time, working in the home. And when she did have to work outside the home, it was an option that she had. But then after my grandfather passed, she did a lot more volunteering at the Library of Congress. She actually worked at money. Actually work at Library of Congress, or she just did volunteer work there?
She used to go there to do research.
Research.
If she volunteered, she did research. She volunteered at Columbia Hospital
for Women. Okay. But she volunteered at Columbia Hospital for Women, which was the hospital that I was born in.
But my mom used to work there, I believe, like when she was a nurse too. Yeah.
That's great. Your mom was a nurse. Wow. Connections. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible they could cross paths.
It could have, or Daryl was born there. So something, but it is something with that hospital.
Yeah.
Baby pictures.
Oh,
she went to Rome giving up the baby pictures.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know But I also know she was a caretaker for several people in our family and people. My mom and her siblings grew up on 21st Street in Northeast. So very tight knit community as they were growing up. So she's a really special woman. She put a lot of time and care into doing research on our family history, helping us to trace our family back several generations, which is important work, right? She didn't just do it for her family, the King family. She did it for people who married into the family. My father, she did some for the Burton side of our family.
Wow.
She did some for my uncle Donnell, who's his family, the Morgans. And so that was like a really cool thing that she loved to do. And that's how we really connected. I remember there were times where I would go and spend time with her and we would just go over like old artifacts and things that she had collected throughout the years, pictures, newspaper clippings. Like we would just live. Like that was like such a big thing. She gave me newspaper clippings from like March on Washington.
The original newspapers.
The original newspaper. I mean, like when she pulled it out, it was like yellow because it's so old. And
that's so funny. My grandmother used to keep stuff like that.
So
I love it.
That, you know, that particular generation did a lot of, you know, good record keeping. And so she, from what I understand, was the first person to acknowledge or maybe even concern, because she was saying this like before I was actually a student, but she called me a student. It's like she knew that that would be something that I would have a love for learning and that I would, you know, consistently cultivate that love throughout my life. And so anytime I seek to better myself, I think about that. I think about how she said that before I learned a word, how she just kind of really discerned that about me and was able to affirm that about me. And which is why I try to really to honor that by making sure that I continue to be that student, to always be teachable. Is what I kind of, at this particular point in my life, it doesn't have to be formal learning, but to always be in a posture that you can learn more. You can always know something else. She passed away my freshman year of college. Literally my final week of college, my first semester. We were just actually, she passed away like the last week of classes. So that Saturday, right after class, the semester technically ended and started finals week. But I remember my parents didn't believe in like giving me play-by-play because like you're away at college, you don't need to be concerned, bogged down with the details. And I appreciate that because care, right? But I remember on Monday of that week, like I really started to just feel bad. Like I had like this stomach ache and I really couldn't shake. And I didn't feel sick, but I just felt like something's happening, something's wrong. And at that particular point, had not realized that Nana, I guess, had gone into the hospital where she had kind of took a turn, you know, toward passing on. And, you know, from that whole week, I just kind of had this feeling. And of course, you know, my parents and I really, you know, telling me because they didn't want me to worry too much. But when I woke up Saturday morning, the feeling was gone. And I'm going to say maybe an hour after that is when I got the phone call from my parents that she had passed. And I was just like, wow. So then, like, you know, obviously very heartbroken. We have a history, especially on my mom's side, of longevity. So then my Nana passed away at 84. I feel kind of like, man, she got slighted a little bit because, I mean, we've had some of our cousins lived into their 90s and 100s, you know, so like 84 was like kind of brief considering. And please don't get me wrong, like I'm grateful for every day that she was afforded. But, you know, just even she is not Alzheimer's, dementia. She had dementia before she left. So even seeing someone who for so long was so mentally just sharp. And in fact, those last couple of years, to see her, move from being so mentally sharp to, not even recognizing people that are her children and grandchildren when they walk into the room. Very heartbreaking process. I don't think that I did a lot of processing because I was a teenager. A lot of it kind of went over my head. Like, I knew there were things going on, but I don't think I really understand the full, just how it all really impacted and what it really meant. One of the things that I will always remember, though, is when we did go up to visit. Many of you know my dad's a pastor, so we wouldn't leave visiting her without praying. And when it was time to pray, she bowed her head. So she knew, like, she may not have been able, at the end she was calling my dad my grandfather's name. And that wasn't even her son. That's her son-in-law. She was referring to my dad as Norbert, which was my grandfather's name. She didn't know a lot of things, but she knew when we were praying, she would bow her head. And she was all that. She kept that posture toward God and prayer, even when other things were just mentally foggy. And so, trying to get through this without crying, but today
we cry on here. It's okay.
Today I felt like it was only appropriate that I get a chance to honor this day, what would have been her 100th birthday, and to just publicly say thank you to her. She may not be able to hear me, but the acknowledgement means something, that I say thank you to her for, just giving me so much, even indirectly giving me my mom, who I don't know what I would do without. And even like, if you follow me on Facebook, you see that my picture is a picture of my grandmother from like the 1940s. And the older my mom gets, the more I see just how much she looks like my Nana. And so I'm gonna hold this up to the screen. My mom, hold on, let me make sure. Okay.
I was in Washington.
So this was in the Washington Post today. My grandmother, and so that's how my family chose to honor her. And so I just want to say thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to be able to, process this. And as you can see, it's been 16 years, well, just over 15 years. She passed away in December of 2005. And still okay to cry about that, right? It's still okay to say that, man, like, I really wish that my grandmother was still here. I wish that, she had been able to see me get married. I wish that she had been able to see me have children. And
thanks, Ashley.
But this is what we do, right?
We do. I should have told the guests to get their tissues, because we got more coming, but it's all good. It's a reason for this. Claudette said she's beautiful, so just
thank you.
She is. Okay.
So, it doesn't matter how much time passes. There will always be times where you will remember a loved one, and you laugh about them, or you remember a loved one and you will just break down and cry. Like it just happened, because we want to break the stigma around grief. Grief is not linear. There is no timeline to grief. And it is totally possible to get to a point, even years later, in your grief process, you still feel like you were at day one.
Yep.
So, though I feel like I'm at day one, there are times where I still remember my Nana and I cry, as I'm doing now. And, even mourn the things that I wish that she was still here for. So I'm not going to take up all the time. But
No.
I'm bringing it up because it's Women's History Month, and not all heroes are on the cover of Time magazine or on social media. My grandmother, without a doubt, absolutely was my hero, and she did so much in her life that I can't even really get into all of it. But all right, I'm going to shut up. Thank you.
No, thank you for sharing it. And like you said, it is Women's History Month, and so we sometimes there are topics, but we don't talk about exactly what we're going to talk about. That's why it's called Random but Real. That's the part I left out of the the description at the beginning. And when Ashley said her grandmother's birthday was a day, for those who watched last week, that my mom's birthday was last Wednesday. She would have been 78, and so like, I totally understand. Like, even though you're saying 84, I'm just like, she died when she was 74. I felt like it was because my mom was spry. She wasn't having any of the issues that most people say that they're, that's how they died and that's how that's not what was happening. And all of a sudden she wasn't able to do any of that stuff. So I can relate on so many different ways, which is why I'm crying now. Just a beautiful person. Like, I don't think, Danya, you got a chance to meet her, but Ashley has met my mom and has been able to spend time with her. And most people adopted her as mom. Like, even if I didn't want to share, I didn't really have a choice. Like, everybody she was mom. She was Mama Gilliam. She was Ma. Good evening. Natasha, thanks for joining us. That's who she was. And so as you talk about the stigma around grief. Every year on her birthday and her death date, and whenever I'm feeling it, I will post pictures about my mom or of my mom or my mom, my brother and I, whatever, because it was just us. And every year I tell myself, I'm going to be okay. It's going to be good. Like, I'm going to post pictures and I'm going to be fine. And it's not any issues. And wow, that's awesome, Claudette. Just that's a long time. Wish that she was here too. I'm sure you can relate to our stories today. But I wish that I could experience some of the stuff that we're going through now. Like, I'm really glad she's not here during COVID. I can't even lie about that, because I think that would have created a whole nother different level of stress, anxiety, and just wanting to protect her and make sure she was good, because that was my ace. However, there's so many things I want to talk to her about, and I can't, and I don't have anybody else to. Like, I've talked about friendships, and my dad's deceased too. My grandparents are deceased. So this whole year has been very, very lonely, and my mom would have been the one that I talked to about stuff. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I do have people in my life that I could call, but I usually don't when I feel whatever it is, because like you said, I've had people say, you still not over it. It's almost 4 years. And someone taught me that, death ebbs and flows, and it does. I've never been so affected by a death as I was the death of my mother. And people say, well, that's just your mom. That's why. For me, that's not it. It was the manner in which she died. The fact that she was a nurse and took care of people all her life, and she couldn't do anything the last 2 weeks of her life. And I don't really go into a lot of detail, partly because I can't. You see, I can't even get it out. But now, after her death, I just see death differently. When I post those pictures, it's to celebrate her. The fact that she was always smiling. Like, most of the pictures you see, she was always smiling. And she had like the most beautiful chocolate brown skin. Like, clear, not actually like. Okay. And I don't know if I had, like, most of you all follow me, if I can find the picture while we're on. But it definitely hurts to not be able to reach out to those people who have poured so much into you. My maternal grandmother, she was, like that too. She died 3 days before Christmas in 95. But that's also why it's so hard for me, because that triggered what happened with my mom. So, I often tell people it's no one wants to find anybody dead. At least I've never met anybody who did, but to have to go through it multiple times, I don't know why God thinks I was prepared to do that, because I'm not. I still don't feel like I'm prepared, and I definitely have more days crying, I think, about it than I do smiling. But I remember when I cried every day, and I don't do that now, and so that's a blessing. But things are definitely not how I would like them to be. It's not I'm not thrilled, I'm not happy, I'm not excited about having to do this journey of life, this leg of life without her. So I don't know if you can tell me if you could. So I'm trying to, you see the ring light, so it might not let me do it. Yeah, there she is. So, but it's on my Facebook page or my Instagram page if you all follow me. So yeah, it's different too, because every year was like my cousin, then my brother's birthday, and then my mom's birthday, and then my niece's birthday now. And so that space in between those 2 weeks, it's just like, what do we do now? So, Danya, was there anybody that you wanted to honor this Women's History Month? And I'm going to mute so I can blow my nose.
Of course. So my granny, she passed. She was 89 years old, and I'm listening to Ashley talk about her grandmother and Lisa talk about her mother. So it brings back so many different memories. Like if I was sick, it was like, I just need my grandmother. I would go over my grandmother's house and just lay on her lap. She'll just rub my hair, or she'll do my hair. Or coming home, my grandmother will call me. She said, Don, stop at Kentucky Fried Chicken and get me some biscuits. My grandmother and I love KFC's biscuits and King Serve. So that was our little thing.
My dad, I know you hear in the background. My dad is from Norfolk, Virginia. King Serve.
You don't know about that King Serve. Yes, that used to be the truth. That's like sugar diabetes in a bottle. Not exactly. It's so good though.
And if we got sick, we knew always to go to Granny. Granny had in the refrigerator, probably in one of those King Serves bottles, that little whiskey, with rock crank candy and something else, honey or something, and it would knock the cold right out of you. So it's like y'all bringing back so many memories. And my son's being around her, at least she got the chance to see them, but she hasn't not had the opportunity to see my grandkids. But I also have my dad's mom. She's still alive. She'll be 94 on her birthday. So I'm blessed in that way. But I was thinking about those memories with my grandmother and just laying on her lap, like I said, with the kid, just her rubbing my hair, or with me combing her hair, she combing our hair. So when I was growing up, it was 5 of us, the first set of 5. So it was myself, my 2 brothers, and my 2 cousins. So that's when the Gong Show was in thing. So grandma was going to go on the road with the Fantastic 5, go to the Gong Show and do all of that. She always went on every field trip that any of us had. She was always the chaperone. And even when my sons were born, she was able to be a chaperone for them as well. So it's good memories. It's emotional as well. So I won't start, because my cousin already texted me. She's listening and she's boohooing all over the place. So it's like,
y'all, that just means Danya's pucking out today. She don't want to be like Ashley and I and start crying. Just kidding. It's all jokes, okay? It's all jokes.
I don't want to do that ugly cry. So
it's okay. It happens. Like I promise y'all, I'm all good. I knew, what Ashley was going to talk about, but that tells you how much we are similar, even if our stories are different. And I think that if people would listen more, that's part of the issue with the stigma. It's like, sometimes it's never happened to them. They haven't lost anyone they love. Or, I do know parents who are not the greatest of parents. I've met those people and their children will say that, they've actually said it. And so it's a difference when that person dies, but the void is still lost. The parent is still the parent, whether they were great or whether they weren't the greatest. But hold on, I just want to read what Brock said. Wow. Whew, that's deep to have to die something like that. I'm sorry, Brock. And no, I don't. We can talk about my dad too. And that was a week before my senior year in high school when he died. And suddenly, just so you're right. And it's funny, when my mom died, I missed my dad even more. Like, I had gone over the process, but I realized that my mom was the one who was there with me when my dad died. She was there with me when my grandmother died, both sides, when my grandfather died, when they even asked me to preach the eulogy because I had just become a minister. And I was like, why are you asking me to do that? Like, that wasn't fun either. But you know what I mean? So you're right. It's a process. And I think that if we talk about those things, even if that means crying, like, why are we afraid to cry? Why? And I'm not, so Danya, like, literally, this is not about you. I'm just saying in general, because it's and me included. There's
no, I understand. Trust me.
Yeah.
I just don't have an issue.
That was me last week with that. I was like, man, I meant to have some tissue next to me, but where I'm sitting right now, I can just pull it. But yeah, so it's like, feel the emotions that you feel, like what Ashley was talking about. If you feel like crying, cry. If you feel like laughing, laugh. If you feel like cry laughing or laugh crying, then do it. It's okay to be okay with whatever state you're in at that time. And I'm being intentional in 2021. So I told y'all about the time of make time, have time. I'm serious about that. The other thing is being intentional about if I feel like crying, cry. Like, I really am going to try my best to stop telling people don't cry.
Right.
That's the first thing we say when people get sad. Oh, I don't want you to cry about it. Crying is a natural emotion that God gave us. And if you don't teach people to release it, it's going to come out in another way. Usually anger. What do y'all think about that?
Well, me personally, like, I'm the only girl. So I have a lot of sister friends like you two. So losing my first sister 2 years ago to cancer, watched her take her last breath and everything. Her birthday was the other day. And I'm up at 3:00 in the morning. So I'm posting the video that I did for her. And it just came out of nowhere. I just broke. I mean, what I was saying, I just broke. I know I do that a lot when it comes to my brother, but going back and looking at our memories, our pictures, all the stuff that we've done, her daughter, she never got to see her only grandchild and stuff like that. And that all just came, I just let it rip. And I felt good, but it still hurt, but I just let it go.
Good for you. Good for you. Did you want to say anything, Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we just, our culture in general is very impatient with people. I think that, so much of how we've been socialized to think about grief, right, is impacted by our society, our capitalistic society. Everything is to the beat of getting you back into a place where you can be productive, right? Because that's what we value as a society. And we don't, to a lesser extent, definitely value things like vulnerability and honesty about, I'm still very sad about this, or I'm still struggling with this. And so, I think a lot of us, all of us, have some unlearning to do around how we respond to people's grief responses. And how we, how we tend to, in those moments, prioritize our comfort versus someone actually being okay, right? So it's kind of the same as just in general. Like, if you ask somebody how they're doing, if they really tell you how they're doing, like, are you really going to sit there and help them process through, or help them to get to a place where they can be better? Or do you really care? Or is it just we've been conditioned to say, hey, how you doing? And not really care about where people are. And I think that also contributes to a lot of the up and down, the ebb and flow of our grief processes, because we're not allowed, especially immediately in light of loss, to really grieve the way that we need to grieve. that prolongs, and it definitely makes the grief process more volatile, right? I haven't been able to really, think about or let out or, process what I'm feeling about this particular loss. Is going to come out in different ways, and it's going to come out at different times. And some of that is just naturally by design. Like, grief is not meant to be something that we can put a time stamp on. It's not, something that we can really just, say, okay, after 2 weeks, you shouldn't be whatever. I think the most impactful death, and it doesn't mean that none of the other deaths I've experienced in my life have not meant anything, obviously, but the most impactful death that I've experienced was my brother Greg, who died very suddenly, almost 2 years ago at this point. April will make 2 years. And so what I really know about grieving has come mostly out of that year, with dealing with Greg's death, with dealing with my father's very unexpected triple bypass, with dealing with a multitude of health issues, all of those things that I'm still in 2021 in counseling, working through, why it is that I'm in a space where things are really happening really wonderfully in my life. And I'm still approaching each day like, yo, what's going to happen today that's going to stop this and send me right back into that year, right? And likely because when those things happen, I did not take the time to really address all that was happening with me, right? And it's not that people didn't try to offer me the space or whatever, but you feel crazy, or you feel, stupid or whatever, if you feel crying about someone who passed away 2 months ago. And people do their job to make you feel that way too.
Right? Oh yeah. Yeah. I've lost it. 4 years. You like, what is wrong with you, Lisa?
I think some people don't understand it or try to understand it, because most people know my story. It took me 17 years. And just by what Ashley was just saying, it goes back to really not taking that time. Because my therapist, when I started going, she said she's surprised I didn't snap a long time ago, because I pretty much just snapped, because right after his death was in August. I started my bachelor's degree in September. So I really didn't have the time to focus on anything. And I agree with Latasha, that anything can trigger those emotions. So I'm dealing with 2 sons that are active. I'm doing full-time loads in school, doing a full-time job. So no, I did not think about it. I didn't focus on me. And when my body finally decided to shut down, it shut down, and it shut down hard. I was making wrong decisions in my life and stuff like that. So I tell people there is no time limit on how long you grieve, when you grieve, and like Latasha said, whatever triggers it, because it can be anything from a song, a smell, or whatever. Like mine, I tell everybody, it's my brother's birthday, my birthday, and the anniversary of his death. So that's pretty much what my triggers are, and I know it.
Mm-hmm. Somebody asked me when I was telling them that. So like, I was like, so far, my mom's birthday and her death date, it hasn't been good, blah, blah, blah. So he was like, are you anticipating it to be that way? So when I was in school for grad school for counseling, they basically taught us that after 2 years, if you're still grieving in the same manner, then there is a problem there. And I do agree still now, even though you still may grieve, the grief is still supposed to be a process. And if you're still grieving in the same manner, if it's every day, you can't hold your breath, every day you're crying, every day you're hyperventilating, every day you're depressed and sad and that's a signal that you need to get help. So yes, we still grieve, but if you know you're at the same place you were when it first happened and it's been years later, then that's not normal grief, just so you know. They weren't even saying then that it can happen and be forever or, whatever. But some of it also is how we prepare ourselves. Like I've had like maybe 1 or 2 real good cries, but not really. And like you were saying, Ashley, in the 4 years. And sometimes I don't feel like I have the space to do it. Like I don't live by myself. I don't want to, I'm dealing with a whole bunch of other stressors, so they don't help, just with the grief process. And remember, I think it's, important to say that grief does not just mean death; it means loss. And or even when you think something might happen, that you're losing something. So it could be relationships, loss of relationships. It could be loss of a relationship with a child. Doesn't even have to be with a significant other. It could be change, job loss, or change of jobs, or all of those things can add to where you already are. I did want to bring up what Brock said. He said, how are you doing is the most disingenuous statement made by most people. And I said, do you think so? Because I say it, but I usually say, how are you doing today? Like, I'm specific. I've learned that a lot from Ashley. She's very specific. She's really good at that, y'all. Like, for real. And I say that because she was one of the people that was really, I can honestly say, was there for me when my mom died. Like, she was like, do you need me to come? I literally, I hadn't eaten all day, and I went to Wendy's to go get something to eat because I was starving. Like, I still got to take care of myself. I still got to eat. And I was so mad because they had gotten the burger wrong. And I was just like, these people don't even know that my mom just, and I had to get back out the car, go back in, get my fixing, whatever it was they forgot on the burger that I paid for. And I'm sitting there waiting, trying not to, I just wanted to cry and just be to myself. But I couldn't because I was starving. And, she was like, do you want me to come to the parking lot? She was like, do you want me? And I was like, no, I don't. People would ask if they could come over, and I didn't want them to come over. I just didn't, there's so many different things that happened since that time that has made the matter still worse. And so those are secondary losses, which a lot of people don't necessarily talk about.
Yes.
And so that can be great too. And sometimes the secondary losses can be worse than the actual loss itself, because we're alive. We know that at some point we're going to die. We all know that, right? But you don't know how difficult it's going to be to pay the bills because the person that was paying the bills is no longer here, or how, you might not have food, or you might have not enough food, or, you're trying to now pay the rent where you didn't have enough to pay the rent. Or you don't have childcare now. So now you have to find someone who takes care of your child, and you may not have enough to be able to do that, or you did not have insurance in the first place. And so life insurance, or like a direct adult, directive, or a living will, or advance directive, I meant to say, which I have to give a caveat. April 14th, we're going to be talking about that. So please be here. One of the things that I've seen that really, really bothered, I thank God my mom had all of her affairs in order. Even have a DBA, a POA, power of attorney, as well as a DBA for your banks, because people die and then they have to go to probate just to take, it could be $60 in that account. Well, most people are not going to do that. But what if you need that last $60 just to pay for gas because you just didn't have it? Because things happen. Go ahead and put that stuff in. They can't get your information until you're dead. So put somebody on your account that you trust, so they don't have to go through probate for it. And I thank God that my brother and I were on the same page. He was the POA, but my mom had one account where both of our name, my name was on, but we knew what she told us to do. And so it wasn't a whole bunch of strife when it came to if we had to split something, or what was hers, what was mine. And so have that conversation now. I'm sorry, I had to throw that in here. I know that's not this particular thing, but don't put that on your children, please.
Absolutely. And I just have to say, that's one thing that I really appreciated about, even with you in your process, pretty soon after your mom passed, you were impressing upon me, have you talked with your parents about their affairs? And I was just like,
I don't even remember that, but
I know.
I'm on a warpath about it.
You were like, no, you need to talk to them. You need to make sure that y'all have. And I know it's the uncomfortable thing. It's a conversation that we tried to have. I remember when Greg was alive, my mom was trying to have this conversation. Greg didn't want to think about it. Nobody thought in our wildest imaginations that we would have need to have a conversation with him, because he was passed before my parents. Yeah. And so, that is something that, definitely want to say kudos to you for making sure that you put that on our radars, because so many things that we don't think about. The second thing is secondary losses are so real, because you know that you're going to miss that person's presence but it can be really the voids that you feel in those very everyday kind of ways. So it's not that I just miss you because you were my loved one and you were just such a great person. Greg did a lot at the church, and when he passed, it was just like, we have spent to this very day, any given day, you can hear us be like, yo, if Greg was here, this would be taken care of. That would be taken care of. We wouldn't have to worry about this. When my dad when my dad went in to get the catheterization, it was Greg's birthday. Right after he had passed. Greg had passed on April 10th. His birthday is May 21st, Greg and Biggie Day. My dad had to go in to get assessed on Greg's birthday. And when he got his catheterization 10 years before that, Greg was the one that took them to the hospital. So even like those the smallest, things and connections, those secondary losses can take you out so much more than even just the mere memory of that person. So yes, I do think that we should talk a little bit more just in general about how the secondary losses that are produced from the primary loss. Like, of course, you're going to miss your loved one, but all those other things that come along with that loss that you don't even begin to think about when you get word that they passed. You just, in the moment, you just miss them. But, you're not thinking about, like Lisa said, all those other things that's just going to be like, yo, how are we going to deal with that?
Yeah. It's just a plan. Go on.
Yeah, I think about that too. Like with my grandfather. My grandfather was the one who loved to go fishing and stuff like that. So it's so many boys in our family, and we all mentioned this. Say, if Granddaddy was here, all of y'all would have been fishing by now. Y'all would have been doing this. If my brother was here, the smiles that he brought on people when he walked in the room. It's just like you said. It's the little things that is a trigger. Actually, it's the little things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just.
Yeah, absolutely. I always forget to say this at the beginning that although two of us have had background and masters in counseling, we are not counselors on this show. We're just giving you our opinions, our information that we've learned. My hope is that you'll learn, from the things that we have experienced, and and that you're prepared. You know what I mean? We want you to be prepared because life does hit, and it's not just older people. It's not just younger people. I say this. I was talking to somebody because I was really serious about this. Like, my brother actually sells Legal Shield. Well, that's a really inexpensive way for you to get your will. And it makes okay. Well, see, got somebody else, Danya. And they give you sign up, you do your stuff. They have Legal Shield, they have ID Shield, because people still not identities all the time now. And for less than $30, maybe a little bit more now, I don't know, because
it's actually $25.99.
Okay, so you're able to get. Well, I'm saying for both of them together, it's more for both. Yeah. So, but for that, you're able to get your whole advance directive, your living will, all this stuff is done. And I was talking to somebody. They have a house and they have children, but no will. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, none. Get your stuff in order. And it's us. It's for, if I don't even know if I have other races looking at this, but I know the Black people that I've spoken to are not prepared, and they're not having that conversation. They don't know if they want them to have pull the plug or have them stay on life support forever. I knew what my mom wanted, and I thank God that we've had conversations, but she had it spelled out. My question is, do you know? Do you know what your parents want? Do you know what you want? Do you know what your children who are adults, I'm talking about adult children, know? Have this conversation. It's so important. And then talk to your friends about it. We talk about, breast cancer. They say, hey, we talk to your friend about getting your Tata check, right? That's literally what you say. Have you had your breast cancer, mammogram, blah, 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 or whatever. Talk to them about getting this stuff in order too. It's so important. It's so important. If you're watching this like right now and you have children and you have property and you don't have a will, then yes, Lisa Gilliam is saying shame on you. It's that important.
Yeah.
I've heard people say to me, well, I'll just let my children decide. It has ruined families. It has destroyed families because one person feels one way, one feels another. But if you have it in a will, guess what? They have to enact what it is that you say. And if you have a power of attorney that you actually trust, then you'll know that they'll do whatever it is that they say. There are laws to protect. You know what I mean? Please don't put that burden on your children. Please don't do that. And, I don't know how old you have to be to get well. Like, I don't know all the legalese, but I do know that having that discussion is important, even for us. Once you become an adult, you should have that stuff in order. You know what I mean? A child, I don't think, can say, well, yeah, this is what I want. You know what I mean? But if you're an adult, have that conversation. If you know your child's going away to college, anything can happen. Have that conversation before you go. Find out what it is. And yes, you're right, Ashley. It is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for me to be like, ask my friends and family, are you saved? Sometimes. And I love Jesus. And I don't want you to go to hell either. But, I have it. So why won't I talk to you about something you can do while you're living? Because the reality is sometimes people do wake up off their deathbed. So it doesn't go to just, that point. But if we don't get to the point where we're having the conversation, the stigma still stays. And it gets worse because no one talked about whatever it was. And like I said, I've heard it, I've seen it. People destroyed, families destroyed because they wouldn't have this one conversation.
Yeah. And I would even say, as someone who's preparing to get married, we're already having these conversations as well, because you just don't know. And I'm gonna be honest, like the amount of just mortality in this last year has had me just like, yo, and so, of course, technically right now, he's not entitled to anything legally. I'm not entitled to anything legally yet. But once we get married, like, what are we going to do? Do you know? Because up until now, my plan had been to be buried at Fort Lincoln, where my parents are. Are we going to still move in that direction? Are we going to go somewhere else? Let's start praying on our plot so that what I mean. Those things. And I think a lot of times, I'm specifically speaking from a Christian standpoint. A lot of times, we process preparing for certain things like this as like a lack of faith. But if you're not rich, you don't have the ability to just pull.
Not planned, right?
You know what I mean? Funerals are running $10,000 to $15,000, and that's for basic packages.
Yep.
Yes.
Like even to get cremated is $6,000, $7,000. I mean, it's a cheaper option, but cremation used to be real cheap.
Right, exactly. But people don't realize either that if you start planning now, it's cheaper than alive.
Exactly.
Do y'all know even just the little plot? Not the plot, but the it's a case. I can't think of it. The case itself that you can even put. You have to get. It's mandatory. At least that by itself is like $3,000-$4,000.
It absolutely is, because me and my parents went up to Fort Lincoln a couple of months ago, and I saw them numbers, and I was just like, oh.
It's ridiculous. And for someone like me, I'm just going to be transparent, because I suffered so much without having a job for so long and being diabetic and it not being controlled. I was not able to get life insurance. Like when I was younger, let it lapse because of financial issues. Honestly, I didn't even know about it, but my grandmother had gotten a policy and I didn't understand really life insurance then and the importance of it. And she had it since I was a child. And by the time, everything hit the fan, this was after my dad died, after she had died, and couldn't just afford it anymore. And I didn't know to take it over. I wish that I had that conversation about the importance of it. Like I knew something, but not enough. And so even as an adult, yes, like if you get on a job, then you have the ability to get whole life insurance as a group, or term life. Sometimes whole life usually is more. But because of that, I was finally able to get something. But I don't even care. The first thing I could get was a $10,000 policy, or term life. I was able to get $50,000 or something like that. But term, of course, expires. So educate yourself too on the different types of insurance. My brother would sell that too. And so I did open up a little bit more, to that knowledge. But even if it's only 10,000, that's still less than your family's going to have to come up with, if you got to get the cheapest funeral rate or whatever. And then, by the way, it also costs to rent the church if you're not a member of it. And sometimes even if you are a member of the church, it costs. And I went around because I ended up speaking or I was asked to sing and the minister didn't show up. But since I was a minister, I was like, well, and God was just pressing my part to say something. And come to find, I was like, well, how much do ministers cost? And so like the going rate is like $250. And that's just somebody regular. I was a regular Joe. So just imagine if it's a church that's popular, you know what I'm saying? And so some ministers don't include that in their regular duties as a sign. So there's a lot, you know what I'm saying? Even when it comes to that, I called in some favors when my mom died. Like, and I know a lot of singers. I was like, look, I can't pay you. But would you be willing to do whatever? And so, and I'm thankful, like I said, my brother and sister, they were great. They were willing to put in money when I didn't have, and I was only able to give donations, and not even to everybody, because the job I was working at wasn't making no money, like literally. So there's a lot to think about, and we're not saying it to scare you all, but it is really just so that you're educated or that you'll go out and get educated. And, thank God for all those people that have poured into us. We give God glory for that. But some of those people that poured into us didn't have that conversation with, I wish that I did. And I will make sure that if I do ever get married, if Jesus so sees fit that I'm able to get married, which is something I desire. See, I got to speak loud so it's in the atmosphere. Okay.
That's
He
like,
can
if he allows it to happen, that's a conversation I'm going to have with my soon to be husband. It's important. And, if we have children, or even if he already has children, because let me tell you, it's a child. See, remember, I've been a counselor for 20 years. I've heard all types of stories. They get married. The person is a step person. If they have a stepchild, and then the biological parent dies, what happens to that child? Are you, willing to take on the child? Are you willing to take on all the bills? Do you feel like it should be somebody else? All these are discussions. It's okay to have the what if discussions, the hypothetical discussions that could possibly save families and keep people together. You know what I mean? So, okay, I'm done. What would y'all like to say?
Yeah, no, I definitely think that this is a stigma breaking conversation, right? The stigma doesn't necessarily have to be directly tied to mental health. There is a mental health component to this, obviously.
Absolutely.
But we are here to break stigmas around all these
topics.
And so there's plenty of stigma to go around. Yes. But I think I'm very grateful for this conversation. And of course, Rainbow Real, like, you don't know which way we're gonna go with it.
No.
But it's something that we honestly can't talk enough about. And in the age stage of COVID-19, and people are they're dying from COVID-19, but then they're still dying from the other things that have nothing to do with COVID-19. My fiance's grandmother passed on February 21st. And yesterday would have been her 81st birthday, but we didn't even have the funeral until March 15th. That's how backed up these funeral homes are. People are going up out of here, and it is no, respect of person. It's scary. I pray every day that nothing happens to Frank, because, legally, what could go on with him, his affairs, and then even with his son, who does it fall to? I've been able to integrate into their lives now. I'm legally not entitled to anything until we get married. And so these are the conversations that we need to be having, so that you don't want to increase the chances of there being all these secondary losses like we talked about. You want to make sure that we all know we're gonna die. Except, unless Jesus, doesn't tarry, right? But so we know we need to prepare for the inevitable. We just don't want. We want to make sure that we don't have to pile on what they call compacted grief, right? Compacted loss. Yeah. So we don't want things to just be laying on top of things, right? It's already enough to process with that loss. So that's my final word. Thank you.
All right. So before you go, just share your how they can contact you, Ashley.
Oh, I'm Ashley Burton on Facebook. I am a Burton 214 on Instagram, and I have Mastering Mind Matters, which is a mental health brand. You can follow it on Facebook at Mastering Mind Matters, and also on Instagram at Mastering Mind Matters.
Can I just say I gotta put in my little shameless plug? I know your name, but I promise you I can't never remember when I'm trying to tag you. I can't find you. I'm like, which one is it? So if I don't tag you, that's why. I'm being honest today. Sometimes
I took it personally, Lisa.
Oh, please don't. It was
No.
I'm like, is it Dr. Brady? Is it Ashby? Is it okay? Then I try to find this one. Dahlia's about to be next. And I was like, I always want to say glorious, but it's glamorous one, right? And then I put in Dahlia, and then you pop right up. So it's not a lot of Dahlia. So I've been able to find, but I try, y'all. I try. So just know if I don't tag you, it's because at the moment when I was scrambling to try to do it, I couldn't find it. Okay, go on.
We know you love us. We know.
I do. I absolutely do.
Okay. My name is Dhyana Parker. I'm Dhyana Parker on Facebook, or you can find me on Facebook The Rock for Life Foundation. Instagram is Glamorous1, and The Rock for Life Foundation on Instagram as well.
Okay. And so I'm just, instead of typing all that stuff, so like if you all go to the link, I have put it in the box with their websites. So, and all the links are connected to their the websites as well. Speaking to existence will happen. Are you talking about my husband? I hope you talking about my husband. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. It will happen. Yes, it will. It will happen. Ashley's a witness. Okay, it hasn't happened yet, but she is on her way. And every time she be like, "Hi, how you doing?" I tease her. This is such a beautiful ring. You did really good.
That ring, yes.
It's beautiful. It is. I'm happy for it though. It's really this is like fun shade. Like she knows I'm happy for it. We've had enough conversations. I've cried enough on her shoulder that she knows. So this is how you can find me. I have a CD, which I'm gonna play like the link after this. And actually I have two CDs and one single. So if you go to lisalgilliam.com, or you can go to solo.2 One Singing Lady for all of the places where you can find it. Amazon, Apple, I don't know, all those places. Where are the places that they sell? Pandora, Spotify,
yes.
All those places. Please go and support me. And then I have some hard copies that I'm trying to sell, y'all. 49 copies that I want to sell. Okay. If you're like me and you like actually hard copy CDs. Also, I said Stigma Breakers, we meet every first Wednesday. So this is the collective. We will actually come and speak at your events. Well, right now we're doing virtually, but we will discuss coming in person. I got my vaccination shot, y'all, my first one on Sunday. My arm hurt for 2.5 days, but it's a little bit better now. So, but hey, I would much rather that than, what they're saying the alternative is. So we'll go with that. Please, please, please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube page. It's One Singing Lady. It's spelled out ONESINGINGLADY. I would appreciate it. And if you see this, or if you're on here now, please share this broadcast with your friends. Let them know we're talking about this. The reason why I love the concept, I really can't take credit. I feel like everything I do is because God has kind of given it to me to do. But I love it because it is random. I love it because it's real. It can be uncomfortable. We're going to have some real, I can't wait. It's April. It's April, the conversation. Tell them about that real quick, Ashley. What we talk about in April?
Okay, so trigger warning. I'm gonna say something about suicide. So one of the big debates in the church is whether or not people who die by suicide go to hell. So we're going to discuss that next time. So we appreciate if you come with your questions, anything that you might have done your research on. It is a very emotionally charged conversation. Lisa knows that because we were leading a session one time and I shut down because I was like, nah, this is healthy for me. And that's coming from someone who has attempted suicide. But I love Jesus. I love him. So be prepared.
Yeah, be prepared. And we had, and it just before that, like I might bring it up too next month. But Ashley, when we had that conversation, it was the next week that my mom went into the hospital, and then she died 2 weeks later. And so when I say that she's a friend, even though we were in a kind of sort of because Celebrate Life happened. So she was actually speaking at Celebrate Life, and she still fulfilled her duty that she said she was going to do, which some people don't. They just completely, and we still spoke. We like friends have disagreements. Like if you're human. So we had disagreements, we have arguments, whatever. She stuck right there. She did not stop talking to me. She did not stop checking on me. She, even in her own pain about that, but it's because of those conversations that now I think differently about suicide and hell, and is it, whatever. And so that's why we're having the conversation. So if you're bold enough, and I hope that you are, join us next month. And then join me every week, at least right now to April 14th. And then we're going to have a similar conversation about this again in October. But you'll hear more about that. So thank you, ladies, so much. I need y'all just to hang out for 1 second. Yeah, I'm trying to do some different stuff. I don't know if it's going to happen. We about to find out if I can figure it out. But Ashley did design this, and I wanted to actually, I want to put it up so that y'all can actually see it without me. So I love this. It is, this our Stigma Breakers Collective, pretty much our logo for now. Let's see if I can do it this way. Yep, so you can see it. Y'all don't need to see me. And, we are going to keep going, keep plugging away. So I didn't realize I was on mute that whole time. So, but thank y'all so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And we look forward to you all coming back. Thanks so much.
Thank you.